So one last question following up from this whole issue of absolute versus subjective morality. It's actually the issue of parenting. You get a lot of people in this day and age who are, especially if they're sort of strongly atheist or secular, they say parents don't have the right to raise their children in a certain religious belief because it's unfair to the child. The child should be given a choice. What would you say to something like that?
Well, if that person goes all the way and says, and they shouldn't have any moral values taught to them at all, don't tell them democracy's good, liberalism's good, don't tell them that harming another person might be inconvenient, but it's not a moral wrong. That's something you'll decide when you're older. Don't shape their moral thinking. There's so many ideas. Maybe they want to be a Nazi when they grow up, or maybe they want to be. If that's really where a person's going to come from, then that's an interesting perspective. But if the person's really coming from, we have to teach all children to be liberal, secular, have these sorts of values, and not let them decide religion later on. Why? At the end of the day, a child develops this sense of moral purpose. I think you have to allow a child to think for themselves later on and be willing to challenge the values they grew up in. That is important. It's important, in terms of a child then firming up their own views and so forth. But I think the notion, even it would be, the parents sort of hide from their child their own values and not tell the child what they think is right or wrong. So I think that's, and children are too young to make their own moral decisions and then spiritual decisions. If a parent is convinced that something is right, a parent thinks that democracy is really a good thing, or a parent feels, for example, let me give a very good example, a parent feels that 20% of your income should go to charity, or 10% should go to charity, and starts teaching a child to do that from a young age. That's the age in which you've got to program a child to start to learn that. Why? Because if you wait till they're 18, they'll have developed such selfish instincts, it'll be very difficult to teach them that later. If you do believe in certain spirituality should be a part of your life as a deep value, if you wait till a person's 18, they'll have had such a void of that, it'll be very hard to show a person the benefit of it later.
Are you saying that parents have the right to be able to raise the kids with their values, or that there's no other option, basically? And actually, a even more extreme, some would say, example is the issue of circumcision, where you're not just giving them moral beliefs, you're actually giving them, a physical change to their body, which will be there for the rest of their life.
And how dare parents do it, and they should wait till the age of consent. And again, if the person's consistent with that, I can respect the person. But you see, we always let parents do these things to children. At least most people do. Do you know how many parents will make a decision about a child's cosmetic appearance without the child having the foggiest clue how to consent to that? I have a friend whose child's born without a proper ear piece of it, and they are basically elected to do surgery on the child that puts them under full anesthetic. That's not circumcision, which has very, very minimal pain and zero memory of it. Put them under anesthetic. There's actually a small risk to the child's life, much larger than anything you talk about in circumcision. But they're doing it because of a judgment that a child may reject. The child may say, I wanted to. The child at 18 may plausibly say, I actually would rather go around with that, and maybe that'll be, there's all sorts of reasons why they might have a different aesthetic view to their parents. They might have a different value to their parents. They might, there's many reasons why they might. But we're not going to wait till 18, and I'll tell you why. Number one, because at 18, they'll never be able to choose to have had it as a child, which would have been so much easier and less painful and less risky. So an 18-year-old can't consent to having had it at 5 months old or 2 years old, or in the case of circumcision, 8 days old. And for goodness sake, the difference in a circumcision and an 8-day-old, where the nerve endings aren't even complete properly, and there's no, versus an 18-year-old that's under anesthetic and has long-term impact and so forth, is huge. That poor 18-year-old will never be able to consent to having had it 8 days old. And the second element is that a parent may feel that a child growing up without an ear is going to have a difficult experience through their childhood psychologically. Now, of course, any Jewish kid growing up without a circumcision is going to have a very difficult psychological childhood. They're going to learn the values of Judaism and learn that they're in violation of their 3,000-year heritage. So, of course, a parent should be making that moral choice for their child. The 18-year-old can't make the moral choice to have had it when they were 8 days old and to have had it through their childhood. So that's what we always do. You see, if somebody comes along and says, and this again goes through to all these issues, that morally, if a person is being consistent, so we can debate. Do you believe parents have some right to impose their values on a child or what they think is good or healthy for a child? If somebody picks and chooses and it's just circumcision that's a terrible thing, then you suspect something else is going on. Not necessarily anti-Semitism, by the way. Often it's just anti-religiosity, full stop. It's a proxy for all sorts of other emotional issues that a person feels about religion and so forth.
Right. Fascinating. Rabbi, always a pleasure. To stay up to date with the latest JCV content, if you're on YouTube, click subscribe below the video and the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, click the like button, and under following, click see first.